And at that point, I was like, okay, I'll go to school for herbalism so that I can have this certificate so that people can trust a bit more, even though I had been working with this for so many years. But I wanted to get some sense of validation for folks who didn't really understand folk medicine, ancestral medicine, and, and the other ways that this medicine gets passed on. And this also really brought me to connect with my ancestry because after my grandparents passed away, I really felt like, oh, that's my whole connection to my motherland, and my mom doesn't know very much about tradition or culture or practices from the Philippines. I felt this thing of like, where do I come from? Like, when I felt this longing to connect more and more to the motherland after they passed away. I also felt like I wanted all these ways to remember them and honor them and connect with them, but I didn't know how. When I moved to LA about 12 years ago, there was this guava tree growing in the backyard, and it was the only tree there. There weren't any other plants. It was a dirt lot otherwise. And then I started growing this whole garden, this really beautiful garden, for 7 years. And I would sit under that tree and meditate every single day. And it really rooted me and grounded me into home. And I really, really loved that tree so much. And then one day, about 7 years into my garden, my landlord came and pulled out all the plants, ripped out everything. And I was working with all these plants for medicine. She wanted to sell the place and she wanted me to move out so that it would be cheaper for her. And she did it while she knew I was out of town so that I wouldn't be there. And she just literally uprooted all of the plants. And it was really heartbreaking for me. I was just crying for days and days. These plants are my relatives and I had grown them from seed and they're so, so important to me. And the tree was the only thing there because they couldn't take that out. They actually tried to cut off one of the major limbs, but they couldn't cut it all down, and part of it was still there, and I would just sit under that tree crying. But it also gave me a lot of hope because I was like, okay, they couldn't take this tree down. This tree is so deeply rooted that they couldn't take it down. And I would just hug this tree and I felt some kind of hope and resiliency in this tree. At this same time, I was really seeking to connect with my ancestors. And I met with a Filipino shaman medium type of woman. She told me, oh, you really need to work with guava medicine. It's the medicine of your ancestors. And that's a medicine that's really deeply revered in the Philippines for protection and smudging and all of these things. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this guava tree in my backyard has been trying to speak to me. And I started working with that medicine, and from there so many things opened up, and that tree ended up growing so big, like the biggest guava tree I've ever seen in my life. And I started working with the tea of that tree and became really, really close with it. And I gave offerings to this tree all the time, and things just started to really open up.
Hello, and welcome back to the Cycle Starters podcast, where we explore what it looks like to begin again with intention and create new patterns in our lineages that ripple through our lives. Today's episode is such a special one. I'm sitting down with Paige Emery, an ecological artist, herbalist, and medicine woman who shares ways of being in relationship with the earth. Paige's work weaves together healing arts, ancestral medicine, critical ecology, and socio-environmental praxis. And through Earth Medicine Apothecary, they craft plant remedies to support mind, body, and spirit, rooted in reciprocity and ceremony. In this conversation, we talk about Paige's ancestral roots and the path that brought them into this work, what it has looked like to listen to the land as a teacher, and the cycles they're choosing to start and sustain both personally and in community. And towards the end of this episode, I will be offering Paige a mini galactic astrology reading as a reflection to close our time together. I'm so excited. So it's a beautiful moment of witnessing, so make sure you stay with us for that. And before we start our conversation, I do have a favor to ask. If you are enjoying the content that we are creating here on the Cycle Starters podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps the algorithm get our episodes in front of more viewers. So thank you in advance for that. I really appreciate the support. And so without further ado, let's have our conversation with Paige. Hey, sis. So nice to see you.
Hi, sister. So grateful to be here with you this morning.
I am so excited to talk to you. are up to so many cool things. And I know you just had a big art exhibit, a big installation. So I definitely want to talk about that. But let's start with your ancestral healing journey. So, what can you tell us about your blood ancestors or your blood ancestry?
So my mom was born in Cavite, Kuwait, Cavite, and my grandparents grew up northern, central Philippines, Luzon, and the western Visayas. And yeah, that's as far as I know, as far as the places. And after my grandparents passed away, I started to dive a lot more deeply into ancestral medicine through herbalism and plants, and learning a lot more about that ancestral medicine.
Amazing. All right. So, we have the Filipino connection in common. And actually, that's how we met, right? We met through Mayari.
Yeah,
uh,
that's
yeah, Veronica's group program that she created. I think it was around the pandemic, right? It was around COVID that we did that.
yeah, yeah. I think so because we were all meeting online. Maybe.
It feels like 2020. It's like another lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was.
Right? So I'm so grateful to have met you, and it's so awesome that we're still connected. Tell me, when did the concept of ancestral healing enter your consciousness, insofar as not only when did you realize that patterns could be passed down from generation to generation, but most importantly, when did you get empowered around it? And the reason I ask is because in my ancestral healing work, I really focus on facing forward and not being a victim to our ancestral patterns. So, when did you get in your power around, oh, okay, this is what I've inherited, but I can shift these things, I can start new cycles?
Yeah, there's definitely not a direct answer to that. It's something that's constantly emergent and entangled and unfolding. Years down the healing journey of doing a lot of work on myself and in prayer and ceremony and working with plants. After I feel like getting through a lot of things that felt like this was something within me that I needed to work on, I think there was a point you reached where you're like, oh, there's all this stuff that's so much bigger than me, so much bigger than my life and my time that I've had on this earth for now. And so I think it was after going through multiple stages of healing that opened up, oh, here's a whole other level of healing that can happen now that is beyond me and that is inherited. And I think it was also through trying to understand patterns within my family and getting deeper into that work, unveiling that it's also so much bigger than my family and what we've even experienced here. And sort of like that feeling of like, oh, this is beyond us and something that has come to be worked out through us. At the same time, a part of this healing journey and realizing these things, I was also learning more about ancestral medicine. And I think that the two just kind of came together in a way that it showed like, oh, the healing that you're doing here is also for your ancestors. It's not just for yourself, it's simultaneously for, a whole lineage backwards and forwards.
Thank you. That's beautiful, for sure. During my ancestral healing journey, when I would experience the downtimes, because absolutely there's so many ups and downs on that journey, it really helped me to remember that I was not only healing for myself, I was healing for 7 generations back and also healing for my descendants, right? 7 generations to come, the descendants that are already here and alive. I have nieces and nephews, but also, the ones to come. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that into the conversation. So, if you had to put a fine point on it, could you share with us what the patterns are that you feel like you're breaking in this lifetime?
Yeah, there's one that's really strong about this path of working with medicine and being a medicine woman and an herbalist, of a pattern of, medicine woman from our ancestry who have gone through genocide and who have been really hunted, attacked for the ability to heal and empower our communities and our families. And, I think the deeper I got into this work of working with medicine, working with sharing healing and sharing the medicine that's so abundantly provided from the earth to keep us strong and to keep us well and healthy and resilient, the more I would discover, oh, this is something our ancestors really have had to fight for. And have also had to hold a lot underground, and I've also sacrificed a lot to be able to carry such medicine. And I definitely have a big wound around that that I can feel goes way back to just that tradition, being really forced underground from colonization, back to just when the Spaniards came, and they would, specifically, I remember feeling really resonant learning about how there are these stories about them feeding the babaylans to the crocodiles, the female medicine woman shamans to the crocodiles, because they were so scared of their power, and they're like, oh, these are the people empowering the community, so we have to go for them first, and so that really big witch wound that I think a lot of us women have within us is a really, really strong, potent one that I've been working through a lot.
Thank you for that. So I'm curious, have you always had a positive relationship with your Filipino identity growing up in the States? I know that I've been on a journey around that, and I think learning about the tradition, the legacy of the Babaylan was such a healing moment for me. It was such an empowering moment for me. Like, oh my God, being a woman from this lineage, it's bigger than me,
Yeah.
right? We come from warriors. We come from medicine women. As you said, we come from these priestesses who were leaders in communities. So tell me a little bit about that, your relationship with the Filipino identity. Because I think, it can be a challenge growing up in the States with
Yeah.
this background.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it really took some time to find that empowerment and that connection that you're speaking of. That's so profound. When I was younger, I remember my mom was really encouraged not to speak Tagalog, and we were really encouraged to just blend in, because there were so many hate crimes. And with all the Filipino migration happening, and there was a lot of racism. And then on top of that, my grandparents were pretty heavily Catholic too. So a lot of my understanding of Filipino culture was intermixed with Catholicism, which I didn't resonate with or understand, So with that, I didn't really connect with it for a while, and there was these feelings of fear around the identity, and then also the fear that's really kind of ingrained from just Catholicism and generally, that you have to act a certain way or else. So I think the empowerment really came through learning about people like Babaylans, and learning about the warriors, the colonial warriors of our ancestry, and being like, wow, that's incredible medicine that's in my blood, and that's something to be so proud of and to hold with a lot of responsibility and reverence, and integrity, and that really changed a lot of my opening up, like my connection to my ancestry.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, I want to dig deeper into your artwork, your herbalism, your medicine practice. Coming out of this Catholic family, how did you get into what you're doing now? What's your journey been growing up with this Filipino background in the States with this big Catholic influence? I don't know if your mom was a practicing Catholic, but yeah, how did you get into herbalism and all the stuff that you're doing now?
So my mom wasn't deeply into it. She kind of just kept my grandparents happy, and I always felt like I didn't fit in with that. So it was also kind of hard, because I'm like, oh, I know I'm Filipino, but I don't feel like I fit into this tradition, and so I always felt a calling for something beyond myself, but I didn't know what it was. It took me a long time to learn what that was, because I grew up in very much like a bubble, and it took a lot of seeking to come to a place where I could open up that space to hear where that calling was coming from. Working with the plants really, I think, was the biggest doorway for me to connect to healing, and really just my whole ancestral journey. I first started working with plants because I had a lot of health problems when I was younger.
Mhm.
And I was always in the hospital at the doctors, I was prescribed so much medication, and I wasn't getting any better. And I just remember getting to this point where I was like, I never want to go to the doctor again. And I was so, yeah, just kind of, fed up with it. And I think I was about 18, and I was like, I need to figure this out myself some other way, because my whole life this hasn't worked, going to the doctor, and I really hated going to the doctor so much. And I started, somehow found out about plants and herbalism. I'm not sure exactly what got me there. Somehow the message came through to me. And this was a long time ago, before it was so, it's a lot more prevalent now, but at that time it was almost looked down upon,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still kind of breaking through right now in this world of conventional, rational Western science, and that's so dominating what is considered valid. But at that time too, which was like, let me think, about 15 years ago, it was really like so woo woo. But I got into it, and I already loved plants. I already loved like being in nature and gardening, and so it just made a lot of sense. And I was able to sort of experiment on myself enough to heal a lot of ailments that I had in my body, and a chronic illness that I had. And that really opened my eyes to like, wow, this medicine that comes from the earth is like a miracle, and can bring really, really profound healing. And then after that, I just started diving deeper and deeper and deeper, because I was like, I have to learn more about this. I have to share this with my family. I have to share this with my community, because of how much it changed my life. And I really just wanted to share that. And so for years and years, I was just doing it maybe a more sort of private way, where I was just working on myself and sharing medicine with my family. And after a while, the plants told me like, oh, people need this. People really need this medicine. And that's when I was like, oh, I should, because I didn't see myself as an herbalist, even though I was working with plants for many years. And after, I don't know, several years of working with plants, they're like, you need to share this medicine with other people. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'll go to school for herbalism so that I can have this sort of certificate, so that people can trust a bit more, even though I had been working with this for so many years. But I wanted to get some sense of validation for folks who didn't really understand folk medicine, ancestral medicine, and the other ways that this medicine gets passed on. And this also really brought me to connect with my ancestry, because after my grandparents passed away, I really felt like that's my whole connection to my motherland. And my mom doesn't know very much about just tradition or culture, or practices from the Philippines. And then after my grandparents passed, I felt this thing of like, where do I come from? Like, how do I find out more about where I come from? And I felt this longing to connect more and more to the motherland after they passed away, because I also felt like I wanted all these ways to remember them and honor them and connect with them, but I didn't know how. And when I moved to LA about 12 years ago, there was this guava tree growing in the backyard, and it was the only tree there. There weren't any other plants. It was like a dirt lot otherwise. And then I started growing this whole garden, this really beautiful garden, for 7 years. And I would sit under that tree and meditate every single day. And it really rooted me and grounded me into home. And I really, really loved that tree so much. And then one day, about 7 years into my garden, my landlord came and pulled out all the plants and ripped out everything. And I was working with all these plants for medicine, because she wanted to sell the place, and she wanted me to move out so that it would be cheaper for her. And she did it while she knew I was out of town, so that I wouldn't be there. And she just literally uprooted all of the plants. And it was really heartbreaking for me. I was just crying for days and days. These plants are my relatives, and I had grown them from seed, and they're so important to me. And the tree was the only thing there, because they couldn't take that out. They actually tried to cut off one of the major limbs, but they couldn't cut it all down, and part of it was still there. And I would just like sit under that tree crying. But it also gave me a lot of hope, because I was like, okay, they couldn't take this tree down. This tree is so deeply rooted that they couldn't take it down. And I would just hug this tree, and I felt some kind of hope and resiliency in this tree. And then at this same time, I was really seeking to connect with my ancestors. And I met with a Filipino shaman medium type of woman. She told me, she's like, oh, you really need to work with guava medicine. It's the medicine of your ancestors. And that's a medicine that's really deeply revered in the Philippines for protection and smudging and all of these things. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this guava tree in my backyard has been trying to speak to me. And I started working with that medicine. And from there, so many things opened up, and that tree ended up growing so big, like the biggest guava tree I've ever seen in my life. And I started working with the tea of that tree and became really, really close with it. And I gave offerings to this tree all the time, and things just started to really open up. At that time, I was like, I don't know how to find a connection to pre-colonial medicine, pre-colonial tradition of my ancestors without being able to speak to someone or learn from someone. At this time, I didn't have teachers or mentors from the Philippines, and for Filipinos specifically, it's not an easy thing to just research or look up. A lot of the pre-colonial traditions are really underground or hidden, or they were passed down orally, and they're not easy to find. It's something that you really, really have to dig and dig and dig and dig to be able to find this kind of knowledge. And so when I was working with these plants, something hit me where I'm like, this is medicine of my ancestors, and it carries this. And like, this is such a beautiful way that we can maintain this connection to our ancestors by working with the medicine that they worked with, because there's so much information and knowledge that's held within these plants. And the people of the land come to work with the plants as medicine as a way of being in relationship with the land, and a way of being in relationship with how they live and walk on the land, and how the plants of that land can help as part of the ecosystem that we're living in, and then help our communities. And there's always this beautiful relationship simultaneously going on with people traditionally, and the land that the land that's lived on, and the medicines that then come up, that really is this coexistence. So I was really getting deeper and deeper into that when I was like feeling the connection with the guava tree, where I'm like, oh, this guava tree can carry that, it can carry that about learning of what medicine and relationship with land, and all of these things that are held in my ancestry. And so I started working deeper with this medicine. And then I a few years later, I'll share a little story. A few years later, I started creating an ancestor altar, and that really helped a lot as well. And having that place of acknowledging and honoring my ancestors, and coming to sit and pray with, and give offerings to. And a few years later, I was really feeling like I needed a big ancestral healing. There's a lot of stuff going on with my family that I was like, this is so beyond me, and I need help beyond me, and I need I was really feeling like I need to connect with my ancestors for this. I need their help, and I need to figure out what it is that they need. And so I was praying to my ancestor altar, and I had a really serious 4-day ceremony, just me and my ancestor altar. And I was fasting, and I was singing, and I was asking, please help me connect to you. And I wanted to go to the Philippines to understand more of how I could bring that healing. And while I was literally singing to the altar, it was like midnight, I got a message from somebody from the Philippines asking me to come to the Philippines to be with a babaylan in the Philippines, to go study with her. Somebody cold DM'd me, someone I didn't know, cold DM'd me as a message request in my Instagram as I was praying to my ancestors. Because I was like, who's messaging me at midnight? And they're like, oh, if you feel the call, like, come to the Philippines. And it was just so like, what? And so I just said yes right away. I didn't even know this person. I didn't even know what I was getting into. I didn't know anything about it. And I just said yes because I was in my prayer. And then I ended up going to stay with a babaylan over in the Philippines, Palawan, and learn more about traditional ritual and about traditional medicines, and learn about ways of rituals for healing our ancestors and our family lines and our bloodlines and our contracts and all of that. But really it was through this a lot of prayer, and I feel like the plants really helped open that up for me.
Oh my gosh, I love that story. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I was just in Palawan a few weeks ago, so it's so magical. And I'm
Yep.
so glad that you got a chance to go there and be in the presence of a babaylan, be on the land there. Yeah, it was really special to go, and I'm so glad that you had that experience. I'm sure it was incredibly healing and very, very inspiring.
Thank you. And I actually, sorry, the connection I meant to I continue on. When I was there, I was in the rainforest, and I remember it being nighttime, and I gave a tobacco offering to a tree. I didn't even see what it was. It was nighttime. And the next day I was using a bolo, these big knives that are like machetes, and
Mhm.
I cut open my hand, like a huge gash, and it was like bleeding nonstop. And the babaylan actually went to that tree that I gave an offering to, and she chewed up the leaves and put it on my fingers. And she's like, oh, this will heal your wounds. This will stop the bleeding. And you have to do a wash of this every day to stop any bacterial infection from happening. And you need to drink the tea of it every single day. And it ended up being the guava. And then I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, there are guava trees all around here in the rainforest. And that ended up being the medicine that I worked with every day in the Philippines. So there was this like whole full circle that happened with that.
Mama Guava. I love it.
But yeah,
Yeah, this is really special.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing it. Well, I am not surprised at all that you were receiving messages from Mama Guava.
Yes.
I mean, it's our ancestry, it's our lineage, but also bringing some astrology into this conversation. Your sun is in the sign of Scorpio. So Scorpio is fixed water. All of the water signs are deeply psychic and intuitive. So your sun placement is where you shine. So it's not surprising to me at all that you are receiving information in nonlinear ways from our plant allies, from our plant friends, but especially Mama Guava. How do you feel about jumping into your reading now?
I would love that so much. I'm so excited about this.
Okay, yay. I'm really excited to share what I found in your galactic reports. For those of you who are new to my work and this show, I am a quantum soul guidance galactic astrologer. I have the Cosmic Awakening Circle. So, this is for folks who want to go deeper with this work. So, I call it a sacred rebellion for cycle starters who are ready to rise above survival and claim their galactic birthright of joy, power, and embodied sovereignty. And so I have been engaging with astrology um, to support me on my ancestral healing journey for a long time now. And last year, I got the call to expand my notion of ancestors beyond our blood ancestors, beyond our blood ancestry, and start to be in relationship with our star ancestors. So, galactic astrology just adds an outer layer to the traditional planets in Western tropical astrology. So, we're looking at super cosmic points, nebulas, fixed stars, and they speak to your soul's journey across eons of time. So we're looking at past lives, not only on Earth, but also past lives that are off planet. So I'm really feeling collectively we are opening more to our galactic history, our multidimensional selves. And so I've been diving into this. And when I saw my own galactic placements, it really blew my mind. And actually, I saw some similarities in our galactic report. So I want to get into that. But first, I want to talk about your sun, moon, and your rising sign, because that makes up the vast majority of your energetic signature. And my belief and feeling is we choose all of this on the other side as a soul, right? Not as a personality, not as Paige, but your soul decided, okay, I'm going to come in as this rising sign because this is the vehicle for my divine mission. And your sun sign, as I said, is where you shine. And so you're a Scorpio sun. So, like I said, Scorpio is fixed water. And I would say, like, in the highest expression, Scorpio is deep emotional sensitivity balanced with logic. So you feel very deeply, but you're not ruled by your emotions. Scorpios are obsessed with getting to the bottom of things, with truth. And it's like you were born with a PhD in psychology. You understand the human psyche and you cannot stand it when people lie to you. So you have a finely tuned BS meter, probably more finely tuned than any other sign. It's a sign of esoterica and the occult and death and rebirth. And I would say it's probably the most intense sign that there is. We all have all 12 signs in our chart, but they'll be more emphasized if it's the rising sign or the sun sign, or if you have planets in those signs. So that's where you're shining. And I would say the low expression of Scorpio is this deep, intense fear. you're overcome by fear. But the high expression, like I said, is deep emotional sensitivity balanced with logic. And, you're not afraid of getting to the bottom of things. And I always like to share the image of, the person with a strong Scorpio presence in their chart. If they smell something funky or nasty in the kitchen, they'll put on the hazmat suit and they will break open the floorboards and they will go underneath the house with the flashlight to figure out what it is. They just want the truth and they don't care how dirty it is, how nasty it is, how unseemly it is. They just want to know. So does any of that resonate with you? Tell me about this Scorpio sun life.
Oh, about this life. Well, all of that is completely 100% resonant. I just felt like you were seeing me so clearly.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely an intense, an intense life, but it keeps things very interesting.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. I think it is very supportive in the type of work that I care about doing, which is really about healing at the level of the unconscious, and these paradigm shifts that need to happen at the level of really underneath everything. And we really have to get down to our shadows and get down to these really deeply ingrained forms of colonialism and these really ingrained traumatic wounds to open them up to shift consciousness, so, and that's like the work that I really care about doing with the plants and even with my art. And so the Scorpioness definitely plays a lot into that, where we cannot be at the surface. We need to get as deep as we can to make the changes that we need to make.
Okay, nice. Yeah, Scorpio is not surface level. Like
Yeah.
you're going deep and you also are better at this than anybody else. And so one thing that Scorpio folks have to watch out for is getting impatient with people that aren't willing to go as deep as you, right? Because you want to go there, and some people just their constitution, it's not
Yeah.
it's not as easy for them. So you just have to like learn to have patience for these other folks.
Yeah. Have to learn how to bear with small talk and not just walk away.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Well, it's interesting also, talking about your big three, that you're a double Capricorn, right?
Yeah.
So you're a Capricorn rising and a Capricorn moon. So this is a totally different energy.
Yeah.
So this is cardinal earth. So water is your emotions, your feelings, your sentiments. Earth is what we use to build the structures that give us stability and security in our lives. And Capricorn is a feminine sign. You have a heart, you have an emotional side. However, you have to plan ahead with intention to make time to tend to your emotional side. Because if I had to assign an archetype to Capricorn, it would be the worker bee. This is somebody who loves to work. And with your moon in Capricorn, your moon is your emotional core, your emotional inheritance. It's your ancestral wounds, but also the gifts that your ancestors have given you. It also speaks to what you are responsible for giving to yourself in order to feel balanced and at home in your own energy. Work is very important to you emotionally. When you accomplish something, when you're feeling productive, when you're executing a task or completing a project, that feels really, really good to you. That's good for you to feel balanced in your energy, but you do have a tendency to overwork. And I would say the low expression of Capricorn is working for money, working for status. And then the highest expression of Capricorn is working in the service of something bigger than yourself, right? And I think there could be a wound around work,
Mhm.
a wound around overworking. And so, what you have to give to yourself also is that time to tend to your emotional side, like I said, whether that is talking to a trusted friend or sister about your emotions, you know, just taking time to meditate under the guava tree. But yeah, you have a soft side. And actually, Capricorn is a mountain goat from the waist up. So this is the goat that climbs the highest heights. That's why we associate Capricorn with like achievement, right? These are high achievers. But you're a fish from the waist down. So you just have to tend to that watery side. But your ancestors have given you this amazing work ethic. That's also a gift that you've received. And then your Capricorn rising is significant because you chose to come in as a Capricorn rising. That's why we always ask for the birth time, because the rising sign switches throughout the day. And when people first meet you, this is the energy they pick up on. They pick up on your work ethic, right? You're serious about work. Sometimes the rising sign qualities are in the shadow for people because they're not as self aware. So the sun is how you see yourself. But when people first meet you, they may not necessarily pick up on that. What they're picking up on is the Capricorn energy. Tell me about this Capricorn life. Does any of this make sense or resonate?
Yes, all of it makes perfect sense and completely resonates. Again, I just feel like you're just speaking right to my soul with a big mirror. Um, yeah, that's all very on point. And I I'm a very, very diligent hard worker, definitely, constantly, which is really, really good. I'm very productive and very organized and can get a lot done and can help when I'm working in community. I can help everybody kind of stay on top of things and stay organized and stay efficient. And it's really great in a lot of ways. And it does also keep my Scorpioness grounded, because
Yes.
sometimes being a Scorpio can be so intense. And so the Capricorn does kind of keep me grounded in the intensity and a little composed, I would say. But yeah, definitely a shadow side of that is the tendency to overwork. And by tendency, I mean I have to really consciously stop working. Otherwise, I'll just work until I collapse. And even with the awareness of it, it's really interesting. It takes a lot of awareness where I'm like, oh, I know I'm overworking, but I have a little bit left in me still, and I just won't stop working sometimes. And it's something I really, really have to actively do conscious work to allow myself to stop working. I think that, yeah, that's a really big lesson as a Capricorn that I've had to learn. And it's really interesting because it comes through a lot in my healing practice as well, where as an herbalist, most of the folks that I work with are under a lot of stress, and just from the society that we live in, and they really need to, I mean, almost, all of us need this to relieve the stress in our bodies. And usually what I'm trying to help people with is to relax and help with herbs that can kind of remedy the overworking of the body. And I'm constantly also doing that myself. And it's that thing where your wound is always your strength and always the thing that you can share healing. When it's a really beautiful thing, where the more that I've had to learn about this in myself, the more I can help others with this and see where it exists in other people. So it's been really beautiful in that way. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yes, you definitely are prone to burnout, so you have to plan ahead, right? It's like use that grounded practicality, the planning in advance and the discipline to make sure that you have downtime, right? To make sure
I have to write
right?
into my calendar. I literally have every hour written out in my schedule, and I have to write into my schedule, stop working, don't think about anything.
Yep.
I have to schedule it.
Yeah, you have to do that because your natural inclination is just to like power through and get it done, right? Because you can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was going through your galactic report, whenever I'm looking at a report, I'm scanning for some themes. I'm scanning for markers because there is this galactic life theme that you have in your chart. So you are a teacher, guide, speaker, influencer. And just so you can have some context around this, I don't love Tony Robbins or anything. He has these markers in his chart. Okay. So you are meant to teach. You are meant to be an influencer to guide others. Okay. So that just right off the bat, like, okay, yes, Paige is doing what she came here to do. This is awesome. And what I see very clearly is that your path involves sharing wisdom with other people and helping others understand themselves and the deeper layers of life, right? Talking about that Scorpio presence in your chart. So, one of the first things I noticed was that this Capricorn moon of yours is in the 12th house. which is the house of the unseen. Anytime I see a planet in the 12th house, I know that that person is very psychic and intuitive in addition to your Scorpio sun. But because your moon is here, it's like, okay, yes, you're so close to the veil. You're very psychic and intuitive. And this moon is conjunct one of the stars in the Lyra constellation called Alathfar. And like I said earlier, the moon placement reflects your inner emotional intelligence. And the 12th house is the realm of intuition, of spirituality, and this unseen dimension of life. And with this Lyran connection, there's a sense that you carry very, very ancient wisdom around healing and integration of the body, the mind, and the spirit. And I don't know if you know anything about Lyra, but basically they are our most distant ancient ancestors. They are responsible for the human experiment. So all of us have connections to Lyra. They may go really, really far back, but because your moon is conjunct Lyra, I feel like this is really a strong frequency for you. People with strong Lyra signatures are often drawn to studying and teaching the healing arts or spiritual teachings, and your ability to hold compassionate space for others makes you a natural guide for people navigating deep emotional or spiritual growth. There's nothing someone can say to you that's going to shock you, right? You've seen it all, you've gone there. That's one of the gifts of Scorpio. It's like, yeah, I've been there. I've experienced a lot of intensity. And then all of this is amplified by your Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn in the 12th house, conjunct the star Lyra Vega. Vega carries this really visionary frequency. And when Uranus and Neptune connect to it, often we see people who are mystics, who are innovators, because Uranus is the planet of disruption. It's the planet of rebellion. It's where you've decided, I'm going to stand out and do my own thing here. It brings the ability to see new possibilities and groundbreaking approaches to spiritual or personal growth, while Neptune is the planet of spirituality. It's the planet of past lives. It's where we want to merge with the oneness of everything. It's where we can lose ourselves in things. Your Neptune placement deepens your connection to the divine and to intuitive insight. And so together, I feel like this suggests that part of your role is to share spiritual wisdom in ways that feel fresh to people, right? And accessible and relevant for the time that we're living in. And then your midheaven, your MC, this speaks to your public contribution, what you're known for in this life. Sometimes it's career. Your midheaven is also in the sign of Scorpio. Okay. So people know you for going deep, right? They know you for being very psychic and intuitive and being a truth teller. And this midheaven in Scorpio is conjunct the star Crux, A Crux. So A Crux is associated with deep intuition, psychic awareness, and esoteric understanding. And so I think it shows that you're somebody who naturally helps people explore the hidden dimensions of life, the emotional, the energetic, and the spiritual layers that are often overlooked in this 3D realm that we're existing in. And it's a signature that we often see in teachers and guides and healers who help others transform through deeper self-awareness. And then another fascinating placement that I saw, and I'm just looking at what jumps out at me. There was so much here, but I saw that your Venus, which is the planet of love and money and pleasure, the planet of what we value, it's in Sagittarius, which is the explorer, the person who can get bored easily, but who is very curious, right? It's in the 11th house and it's conjunct the great attractor. And so the great attractor is a powerful cosmic point that literally draws galaxies toward it. And so it's like a gravitational anomaly in that it acts like a black hole in some ways, but in other ways it's doing its own thing. Astronomers are still studying it, by the way. And
Interesting.
so it's super interesting. And so when your Venus connects to the great attractor, it creates this beautiful kind of magnetism. So you naturally attract people through your warmth, your authenticity, and your vision for unity and connection. In the 11th house of community and groups, right? And like-minded people and the movement that we came here to lead. I feel like you are someone who gathers people together around shared ideals and meaningful conversations. Your voice and your presence have the ability to inspire others to see life through a more compassionate but also expansive lens, right? Sagittarius is all about expansion and going to the edge of the universe or whatever. And then finally, your Jupiter is in the sign of Libra, conjunct the super galactic center, which is another one of the super cosmic points in galactic astrology. And I feel like this expands your role as a guide in relational and emotional wisdom, because Jupiter is the planet of teaching and where we shine in our spiritual development. It's the planet of philosophy and sharing knowledge. And Libra and the 8th house, it often brings a gift for helping others navigate complex emotional terrain. So things like trust and intimacy and power dynamics and transformation. And so you're somebody who can help people grow by offering perspective, offering balance and insight during times when they're going through profound change. So looking at all of these placements together, and like I said, this is just scratching the surface. I know. I see a soul who is here to teach and guide and influence through wisdom, intuition, and deep compassion. And I feel like your chart suggests that your voice, that your perspective, and your ability to integrate spiritual insight with real world experience, which is Capricorn, can be incredibly transformative for other people. And so when you trust your intuitive knowing and share what you've learned along your journey, you naturally become a lighthouse for people who are seeking clarity, healing, and a deeper understanding of themselves. So I'm just scratching the surface. However, I know that's a lot. Tell me, how are you feeling right now? Like, how is this washing all over you?
Wow, thank you for that. That was so beautiful. Yeah, that was all really beautiful and all just again exactly resonant. I felt all of that very present in my life, in my work, my purpose, my mission, everything. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I think a really big foundation of my work is to be a bridge between these really deep spiritual ways of connecting with the earth and with ourselves, and to translate that to folks who maybe haven't had that connection before, or to make it accessible to folks who maybe have been in a more closed off mindset where they haven't been able to see something like that, you know. So I really do care about creating that bridge, like you were saying, and making it really accessible and being able to share it as widely as I can. And I really focus on exploring and teaching about like ways we are in relationship. And so that was, you know, really coming up with what you were saying too. That's like really the foundation of what my work shares, is like ways of being in relationship with the earth and with the plants and with our own bodies too. And it's like getting to the foundation of the way that we are in relationship. And with the teaching, you know, it's funny because I never tried to be a teacher or a speaker or a guide. I actually was like, oh, I just want to be an artist. I didn't think of myself in that way, but I kept being asked to. I just started being asked to give talks and to lead gatherings. I didn't try, and I was like, well, I'm being asked to do this thing that it seems different than my purpose, what I thought my goal was. I was like, oh, I'm going to be this certain type of artist. And I was thinking of my studio work and making a living off of my studio work. But then I was like, okay, I'm being asked for this more than what I thought my practice was. So I'm like, that means it's really needed. And it means that for some reason I fit into this thing that's really needed. So I need to answer this call. And the more I started saying yes to these things, the more I was being asked to do them. And also this switch happened that you were saying that has to do do with this working through the shadow of the Capricorn to the height of the Capricorn of like, I switched from working for myself to being of service. And some time ago, I made a commitment to the earth to just completely be of service to the earth. And every day I tell our Mother Earth, like, Mama, whatever you want me to do, I'm here to do that work for you. And once I made that commitment, it was so easy to teach and so easy to guide, because I don't even think about myself. I think about, being in a good place from where I'm coming from. But as far as being able to teach and to guide, I'm just doing what the earth is telling me, doing that of service to the earth, and then everything kind of flows from there. And it really actually makes the work just flow a lot more. And so I have kind of come into that role really organically. Yeah, it's just funny. It was never something I tried to do, but it just kind of worked out that way.
Well,
Yeah.
it's your galactic blueprint. You're doing what you came here to do. Well, so before we wrap, I have to ask you this question. I'm wearing blue, you're wearing blue. So much of your artwork is blue, right? This indigo. Can you tell me about that? Like what is going on with it? I mean, I love it because it's my favorite color, but can you tell me a little bit about what's happening here?
Yeah. So I could speak about this for hours. Uh, so I'll keep it to a sort of short summary with the disclaimer that it is a great mysterious unfolding beyond anything that I could share in the short time that we have together. So I've always loved blue, but then I first got into it as this energetic force. So I was learning hypnosis, very Scorpio, and
Yeah.
go into these unconscious states, and they would always be blue. And there's something always about the water being present, and this connection between the unconscious mind and the ocean and being in the water, and how this kind of precognitive state of being able to connect with our unconscious is very much like being a drop in the ocean, finding this way of where we're already connected to consciousness before we start to rationalize and build language and identify and differentiate, And so there was something that I couldn't explain that was this connection with the deep blue of the ocean and our unconscious mind, and how this color also really sort of universally has the effect of tranquility and relaxation and coming into this meditative space. And also the chakra system, it has to do with the communication and intuition. They're both two different shades of blue. And these were things I was tying into both within ourselves, to the deepest part of ourselves, in order to be able to listen to that which is outside of ourselves. That's a language that is completely outside of a conventional language that we can even ever understand. And I really wanted to dive deeper into the effect of this color through my practice, through wearing this color, through making every possible artwork blue and everything that I can blue, to just be like, okay, what is it that this color can do and can have an effect on as a point of departure to be able to experience a conversation, or to be able to experience a gathering or an artwork, and to be in an atmosphere where we can connect in a deeper way, because it has this effect on the unconscious mind. Everything has an effect. The sights, the smells, the sounds, all these things are always affecting how we're present in a space, and including something like this. When there's blue around, it does have a calming effect. And I have seen this through experiments where everyone who kind of comes into these blue kind of worlds that I make say that they immediately feel much calmer. And this is a place from which you can be more receptive, because when the body can let down the defense system, because we're this constant fighting for survival, that's in these walls on the body, around the body, you can calm down, be in a relaxed state and let that down. Then you're also in a state where you can be more open to listening, and where you can be more open to change and dreaming outside of what our given reality is. And it's like this state of the body that that allows for the ability to dream, and to go into these deep spaces. It affords us the ability to dream. And so this is one part of it, and then the other part of it is it's such a mysterious color. It's the color that's said to be the last color ever written down out of all the colors, and the hardest color to discover in nature, and this color that feels like the most mysterious color. This is really interesting to me because I also feel like it's the most prevalent color. It's the color of that we see in the sky, and it's the color of the ocean. We live in an ocean world. We came from the waters, and we live in a water world, and it's so blue everywhere, while it's simultaneously this mysterious color. And I feel like the reason, my own personal belief of the reason why this color blue brings us so much tranquility, is because we live in this blue world where it's this connection to home that we have. It's something like where a fish doesn't know that they're swimming in the ocean because they're surrounded by the water. It's like we are in this blue world. We're surrounded by spirit in a way that is so unfathomable that we can't grasp it and we can't reach it, but it's there. And for me, blue is like this almost poetic relation to that feeling, and I think that's why it brings this sense of tranquility, because it's like this feeling of home and that we're surrounded by this living breathing force that we can't understand. And yeah, so with that, I'm just exploring it to its depths, and I don't fully understand it, but I have it fully present in everything that I do.
Oh my goodness, you just shared with so much passion just now, talking about your work and your relationship to this color. I love it. It's my favorite color. I certainly feel tranquil and calm and more relaxed. I mean, that's some of my artwork behind me. There's a lot of blue, and I'm working on some fish. I told you there's a lot of blue going on, so I can't wait to share that with you.
I can't
Oh
wait to
my
see.
goodness. This has been such an awesome conversation. I love hearing more of your story and what's activating you right now, what's inspiring you. What is going on right now that you're super excited about that you can share with us? If people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, I as far as finding out more about me, Instagram is a really good place because that's where I post everything that I'm doing, and it's just Paige Emery underscore, and then my website is paigeemery.com, and I'll just constantly share things that are going on. I have a few art shows up right now that I'm really excited about, and I have some upcoming workshops that are around connecting to the earth and guided ecology walks, and teaching about environmental activism and tending to the land and being in community to be able to help the earth together. And so I have a few things coming up around that. And yeah, so I would just say best thing is to follow on either website or Instagram. Mhm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I would love for you to teach in the membership next year.
Oh yeah.
So
Cool.
let's put a pin in that. We'll talk about it offline. But if you're open to it, I would absolutely love for you to share your medicine more with my community. Like, in like a this container that we have. So my
Beautiful.
goodness. Yeah, of course. Well, so I have one last question for you before we end today. And this is something that I ask all of my podcast guests. What are the cycles that you are starting in this lifetime? What are the new cycles you're starting?
Cycles. Okay. One that is really big for me right now with the spring equinox and just that I'm moving through is being in balance with my energy, and finding a way to just maintain balance. I think when things, go too much in some other way, just to find, because the world's always going to be crazy. There's always going to be work. There's always going to be something going on, and just always having a practice of like, how do I balance that out to be in a grounded place, and better boundaries, energetic boundaries. So it's like both the boundaries of what can enter my life, but also how I maintain my energy well, and where I give my energy and how I can hold it well so that I can show up in a good way. And then also just, this is kind of always present for me, but it's always in a deeper way. So I'll just say this cycle too of just more deeply listening to the earth. And no matter how many times I come to this, there's always a deeper way to do it. So that humility and that space that it takes, the allowance of being completely still and humble to something that's outside of ourselves, and in a reverent way, of reciprocity, and that practice of always being like, okay, how can I listen even deeper to the earth? And yeah, so that's very present for me right now.
Beautiful. Sis, thank you so much for being in dialogue with me on the show today. This is a long time coming. I've admired your work for a long time. So I'm just so grateful that you're in my life. Thank you for doing the work that you do. And yeah, we'll have to have you on again. I think you have a lot more wisdom to share. And also, I do want you to teach in the membership. So we'll talk about that later. So, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I'm so grateful to have shared this conversation with you and you too for all the work that you're doing, sharing messages from the stars and really empowering that connection that we have and uplifting voices and stories and healing and medicine and all that you do. So thank you too. It's so beautiful to connect in this way.
I received that. Thank you so much. So, everyone, thank you again. We will see you next time on the Cycle Starters podcast. Take care. Okay. Bye, Paige.